So why do we paint in light washes when we watercolor or use a tempera water cake paints? Because if we mess up, we can fix it. If you notice here, maybe you don't see that, on that one tree, I accidentally got a little crazy with my grass there. Not gonna be the end of the world. I'll show you how to fix it right now. It's never a mistake until I quit trying to fix it. So I'm gonna go into my brown. Now, this is the middle ground. So if you remember, the middle ground is darker than the foreground. It's not like substantially darker, like it's gonna be black as night, but it's gonna be darker. So I'm gonna use a little bit less water on my brush, and I'm gonna use the same brown color because, well, I haven't taken the time to mix brown, and I can kind of add some other colors to the pre-made brown and still get some really cool effects, okay? Now, I just did that just a moment ago. It's still a little bit too wet for my liking to be able to go back over and paint over it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna start on this tree next to it. Okay, now this is kind of dark even for the middle ground. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna keep spreading that brown around. And you can see that just with that one loaded up brush of brown, I can paint in this tree in my middle ground fairly quickly, okay? And he still looks a little on the dark side, but that's okay. That's a little bit more to my liking on it being dry. See, now that took me like 20 seconds maybe to paint in, and already that 20 seconds of time is enough time for that to dry enough to where I feel like I can paint over it pretty successfully. Now the grass around it is still a little on the wet side, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go over and I'm going to paint this other tree. And I'm going to kind of start in the middle on this one because the grass is still a little on the wet side. And I'm just going to paint, kind of avoiding those areas for right now. Now I know that some of you do that and you're like, oh, but you always tell us not to do that because we have big white areas around it. Well, here's the difference. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to fill in those white areas. I'm not just going to leave them there, okay? That's not going to be in my finished product. White halos around stuff, that's not going to be in my finished product. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to fill those in. I'm just leaving them for just a few more seconds and I'm going to go back and fill them in. It just gives that just a little bit more time to dry, just slightly more to my liking, so I can create a harder edge that I'm looking for. Okay? And as you can see, I'm working with the tree trunk still wet, and it kind of blends colors together. It allows me, while it's still wet, to kind of move stuff around. But notice, I keep picking up my paintbrush. I'm not sitting there and going, okay, I'm not scrubbing it. It's not dirty. Well, this paper, it is kind of dirty. But I'm not trying to make it clean. I'm trying to put the paint on it. So I'm not scrubbing it. And by not scrubbing it, it actually allows me to kind of work in some value in there, okay? I've got one tree trunk that's lighter than the other, or one branch that's lighter than the others. I've got a darker side, I've got a lighter side, and that works, okay? I'm working again in vertical strokes. Why? Because bark tends to grow vertically. Sure, there are a couple trees that bark doesn't really necessarily grow very vertically on it, okay? And it's got its own little thing going on, but these are kind of generic trees that I paint and it works for them, okay? So that's given that enough more time that I'm pretty confident in being able to go in and paint over that light green color, okay? Now that one area, because it already has green on it, it's going to be slightly a different color because that brown is going to overlay that green and it's going to provide it with a darker area there because there was already a darker color to begin with because the rest of it, it's going over white. So there is going to be a slightly darker area there that I'm just going to have to, you know, play around with that and use it as part of the characteristics of this tree and the texture of this tree, okay? I'm not going to give up and go, oh, it looks stupid, oh, it looks bad, I don't like that, and say I need to start over again or just complain about it. No, I'm going to keep working with it. and I'm going to make it look better. How am I going to make it look better? I'm not going to give up. Okay, so I'm just going to paint over this guy, fill in some extra little spaces. And for the most part, you can't even tell that that mistake was there. Mistake? What mistake? I don't see a mistake. See? I didn't give up. I didn't complain. I didn't throw a little tizzy because I got grass in my tree. I just let it dry and I painted over the top. Mistake? It's gone.